Bear Grylls.
Oh, go on then.
I've realised I am him.
Really?
Well, not in an outdoor sense, obviously.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Hi Judith, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Nicola. How about you?
I'm doing extremely blissfully, thank you very much.
How good.
Tell me about your week then.
Well, let me have a think here. You introduced me to a woman 2 or 3 weeks ago who wanted to interview people like me for her book. Do you remember?
No.
There was a request in some Facebook group called something ghastly like high-powered women or high-flying women.
Oh, it's quite a good group actually. It's high-performing women.
High-performing. Oh, the concept to me is just horrific of high-performing. Anyway, the fact is, you introduced me to this lovely woman, and we spoke. It took us 3 weeks to, we're both such high performers. Lol.
Yeah.
It took us 3 weeks. It took us 3 weeks to find a mutually acceptable time where we could speak, and we did that last week, and we got on like a house on fire. Really fabulous high energy woman, and I managed to get a blog post out of it, which was great because she asked me some thought-provoking questions, and then yesterday a bunch of daffodils arrived from her, which are sprouting on my window ledge, which is very nice. So I do love being interviewed for people's books, and I just love being interviewed actually, because when people ask me questions, it reminds me of what I know that can be useful to other people, so that's great. And the other thing that I like is when people write in and say nice things, and I had a flurry of people doing that this week. And then I asked a lot of my Facebook friends to like our podcast Facebook page. I don't know if you noticed, we've got lots of new listeners and likes. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. Let me go and have a look while you're chatting on about. So, any promote. The podcast is going stonkingly well, I can't tell you. Well, I can. It's going stonkingly well.
Well, those are my three things. Tell me anything that's going stonkingly well. That's always good.
Yeah, well, Sarah came to stay for the weekend. My sister Sarah, who's just back from New Zealand, and she came to stay because we had a rather large job to do. I've been agitating for a long time because my Business Success Factory site, which is henceforth going to be totally devoted to the book of the same name and the podcast of the same name, is very slow. We put it through this thing, I can't remember what it's called now, but it tests your speed. And we know that your speed is entirely dependent on, your search engine. Some of your SEO ranking is dependent on your speed. And it was very, very painfully slow. We did the test, and it was 54 out of 100 on mobile and 68 or something out of 100 on desktop. I'll get the link off of Sarah and put it in the show notes underneath so that other people can test their sites. And the reason for this was it's got over 1,000 blog posts on it, but the main reason is that it had a subfolder called members with another WordPress installation in it and my optimized press and wish list software. So it was running a lot of software on one site. And in order to move it, we had to move all the content from the membership area. And over the years, I've created quite a lot of content with various names, but it all really boils down to mind, money, and marketing. So Sarah came over. She drew a big map on my whiteboard of what was in the membership area and where I wanted it to go, moved it all over onto the new forum, and then she totally moved my entire website to the new hosting. And it's quick as lickety spit now. I can't tell you how quick it is.
Is that the new hosting you told us about before?
WP Engine, yes.
Yes.
It's only WordPress hosting. They don't allow certain plugins because they slow sites down. They've got very high levels of security, and they back up your site automatically every night. So if ever you need to do a rollback, you can do it really easily without having to pay or a big fuss. But I cannot believe how quick the businesssuccessfactory.com is now. It's so fast, and so that's.
I do think that's important, because if it's slow to load, you click away, don't you? Because you're so impatient these days.
Yeah, particularly on a mobile, and over 50% of it is on iPads and smartphones now. So that was a really nice, satisfying job. Although it hasn't actually brought any, tangible benefits yet. It's scratched an itch and got a bee out of my bonnet. It's been there for a while.
The fewer bees in your bonnet, the better.
Exactly. This was a very elderly bee, and it was time to let it go. And I think I might have found. Now, the other tricky bits are that obviously, in order to integrate the membership area with my Infusionsoft, which is my email list host and marketing platform, I have to now find someone to do a bit of integration for Nanocast, which is the shopping cart element of it. But I think I might have found someone. I had a quote for $1,000. This is the annoying thing, you see, when you know quite a lot about stuff, but you don't actually know how to do something, is you know how many hours it's going to take someone who does know how to do it, but you can't do it because you don't know how to do it. And I didn't want to pay someone $1,000 for what I knew was going to be 2 hours work maximum. Yeah. So I think I've found someone now. He originally quoted $300, and I said, well, give me your best price. And that sounds high to me. And he said $68. Okay. So he dropped rather dramatically quite quickly there. But so that's I feel quite. I've also got all my finances up to date, so I'm feeling very what's the word?
Clean.
On top of things, yes. On top of things.
Yeah.
A bit like you feel when you do all your washing in one day.
Yes, I've done that this week. It seems that last 2 weeks running, Monday has been wash day, in a rather sort of old-fashioned throwback. I think housewives pre-washing machines always used to do it on a Monday. But I think mainly because it took all week in those days. Yeah,
it's so funny, isn't it? Do you watch Call the Midwife at all?
I've stopped watching it, actually. I was devoted for the first few series, but my attention span is very short, and I'm a bit yawn about it now, to be honest. But
well, I watch it with TV, and we have a lot of laughs about about how things were done in the olden days.
Yeah,
she's got a bit of context around it because they're up to 1961 now, which is the year I was born. So she sort of pictured the fact that I was born into that world. Then we started watching Poldark last night, and I had a bit of a laugh with the stagecoach was rattling across the hills, and I said, that's like the 700 bus from Shoreham to Brighton, but 300 years ago. And she was like, what? I said, no, that's how people got about, really. They had to pay to go on one of those things. So what's fueled your fire this week then, Judith?
Bear Grylls.
Oh, go on then.
I've realised I am him.
Really?
Well, not in an outdoor sense, obviously, Nicola, but because there's nothing on the telly at the moment, out of desperation, I watched a programme of his called Mission Survive, where he takes, half a dozen celebrities through the most ghastly experiences imaginable. A bit like Chris Barrow's programme last year, but worse. What's really interesting is that he's an expert. He knows how to do all of these things, but he puts these poor people in the middle of a Costa Rican jungle with no skills at all, which I can feel that all too readily, because I know I have no skills except those that are useful at an office desk. I know if there was an apocalypse, I could last for about 20 minutes. But, they have to do things like, they seem very simple, make a fire. But actually, if you're kneeling with a sort of flinty type of device and trying to get a spark, an urban person can take more than 2 hours to do that, whereas Bear Grylls can do it in 30 seconds or less. And what I realised is that when he comes in and shows them how to do it, it's so obvious. Oh, of course we should have done. Of course we should have stunned the fish with our knife. But no, we didn't. Half a dozen of us chased it round a murky pond for 3 hours, because if you don't know how to do something, you don't know. And so in he comes and he shows them how to do it. Oh, God, yeah, so obvious. And I realised that that's like me in business, and I'm fascinated by this idea now of, rather than waiting for people to ask me how to do it, because they're embarrassed to do that, or they want to have a go, or they're addicted to struggle. How can I be the Bear Grylls of business and not wait to be asked? Just show people and teach people and help people so that they're not trying to catch a fish by stalking it.
It's an interesting idea, because when I got very frustrated with this whole Nanocast integration thing, I put a thing in a group that I belong to, Internet Marketing Super Friends, and said, does anyone use Nanocast in here? Because I just need someone to talk me through the concept of how it protects content, because I'm not grasping it at all, and I can't find it in the instruction manual or anything. And I don't know whether it's just me or whether the way the videos are put together, or whether it's my brain, but I just can't seem to get my head around it. And there's somebody, the owner of the software piped up and said, do feel free to submit a support ticket and we will walk you through the integration of your Nanocast with your Zoom forum. And I thought, why had it never occurred to me to submit a support ticket? Weeks. I'm not joking. It must have been 3 weeks now, and I haven't. It never once occurred to me to do that. It's interesting, isn't it? It took them a whole day to light a fire when Chris Barrow was on the island.
Well, quite. But the fact is, when you know how to light a fire, it takes 2 seconds.
Well, exactly. That's why I'm reluctant to pay $1,000 for it to someone who does know how to light the fire, because I know.
Well, you know that old joke, don't you? You know that old joke about the plumber that comes round and bangs on the tap and then says that'll be £100, but it's 98 quid for the 20 years it took me to learn how to do that. I think that's the point, isn't it? That it's easy when you know, it's hard when you don't know. How can, my mission is to make it easier for people so that they can know sooner, rather than doing this thing that seems to be our set point of struggling first. Only when we give up, only when we give up and struggle and we've made ourselves look like an idiot and we're humiliated, might we consider asking somebody. I'm not a fan of these programs, that humiliate people for the sake of it. I wonder why he doesn't just show them how to begin with, how to do it. But anyway, it wouldn't be such good telly, would it?
If anyone's interested, go and listen to the Natural Born Coaches podcast. Obviously, listen to me and Judith, because we're brilliant and we have separate shows on that. But listen to the one where he interviews Chris Barrow. And if you talk to Chris, Chris is actually reminiscing this week on Facebook, because it was a year ago that he came back off the island. And he absolutely loved the whole experience. And I suppose and I'm just about to go into an experiential transformation course kind of thing. And I think it's all about the fact that if you just tell people what to do, they don't become resourceful, because they don't discover it for themselves. And we all know it's like telling teenagers, isn't it? It's like you tell them stuff and they just don't listen. They have to experience it for themselves to really take it on board.
Yeah.
So, I've got a Fast Start Masterclass for internet marketing, and it's 4 weeks, and I tell them specifically what to do, how to get a business online in 4 weeks. Does anyone watch the videos? No, they don't. They come and ask me daft questions. So, there's no such thing as a daft question. That was a bit of a facetious comment, but it's people, I don't know what it is. They don't.
I know exactly what you're saying. There's a very famous, I think, Chinese quote about tell me and I forget, show me and I remember, involve me and I understand, or something like that. Yeah. Where Chris Barrow's point is well made, which is, if you learn how to do it the hard way, you'll always remember.
You'll never forget, exactly. You could get a Fast Start Masterclass on how to get a business up and running. I'm sure you could. But would anyone bother to watch the videos? No, they still come to your calls and ask you what to do next.
Well, I think it is quite a slow process, and maybe my mission of accelerating it for people is futile. Maybe that's it. But anyway, the Bear Grylls has fueled my fire. Who's fueled yours? Who or what? Who or what has fueled yours?
Oh, well, it's not a what this week. It's a who. In fact, it's 2 who's. It's John Lee Dumas talking to Pat Flynn on a recent podcast. And I was fascinated to hear that Pat Flynn's just done a six-figure month. So he's hit $100,000 income in 1 month for the first time. They both document their income on their websites very openly, which is really very fascinating. And John Lee Dumas is regularly doing 6 figures a month. And Pat's obviously interested. They were talking specifically about sponsorship on podcasts, because John Lee Dumas has had sponsorship since day one. Pat Flynn is feeling a little bit squeamish about it, and he's trying to work out how to do it without enraging his followers. And but there was a little nugget of gold in there, which is that John Lee Dumas said that, how I make how I bring people into Podcasters Paradise now. And he's also got a webinar tuition program, which I haven't bought yet. And he just literally spends money on Facebook ads, drives Facebook ads into a free webinar every week that he does absolutely live, he and his girlfriend. It's an hour of their time, and they show people around their membership area. They show people what's inside. They answer any questions anyone's got about podcasting, and people sign up. And he was saying the figures. It costs him about $2 to get a registration to the webinar. About 70 or 80 people turn up out of every 200 registered. So you can work out that he's paying, 200 times 2. What's that, Judith? $400?
$400, yeah.
Yeah, so he's paying hang on. Is it? Or is it 4,000?
No, 200 times 2, 400.
Oh, okay. So he's paying $400 a week to get 200 people registered, 70 turn up, and about 20 or 30 buy a $900 product every time. And I thought, what an elegant, simple way of just turning up and being yourself and being available and answering questions and then showing people around inside the membership area where everything is. What a lovely way of just offering your product to people.
I would love to do that, Nicola. You'll have to help me find a way to do that.
Oh, that's what's fueled my fire. I heard that on Sunday morning, and I've tested it this week already. And I did a webinar last night for, I think it was about 34 people registered and about 8 turned up. But the other thing that John Lee Dumas does is he gives people who turn up to the call live an ever-changing code to get a $200 discount. So they can get a lifetime membership. Instead of $997 for lifetime membership, they can get a $797. And they only get it if they're on the call live, and then he changes the code each week. Well, there's got to be a way to do that easily. But I couldn't do that because there were several of my existing clients on the call, and I just wondered how he handled that. So that's something I need to, because it's a bit like, you buy a pair of shoes in a sale and then you go back a week later and they're cheaper. Would it upset you is the question.
Not me, but I can see, I think what's interesting is when you said the thing about Pat Flynn's feeling a bit squeamish about monetizing his podcast because he doesn't want to upset his existing customers, that's a hallucination, a bit like you and your clients, the existing ones. As a mutual friend of ours used to say, the bus keeps coming around. When are you going to get on it? Delay is increasingly expensive. A bit like when you sit on an aeroplane, the person in the seat next door to you has not paid anything like the same price as you. Do we care what airlines go through to sell tickets?
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? Anyway, so that's interesting that you want to do it as well, because I think we should discuss it afterwards, and then we'll try it out.
I'd love to, and I love elegant and simple, and I would love to do something where people could turn up for free, get the value of it, and then get a discount or a benefit by signing up to join either one of my groups. That would be lovely.
Yeah, and I don't want to exclude my existing clients, because if they're in the inner circle, they get a call a month, and I'd quite like them to be able to turn up to a weekly call if they needed it, whether it's,
Well, isn't that just another benefit of their membership then?
It is, yeah, but then I suppose the payoff for that is that they mustn't mind if I offer a discount to new clients.
No, quite. And maybe you're hallucinating that they will. And maybe you'll just wait until somebody emails and says, oh, this seems a bit unfair to me, in which case you broker a solution between you and that person.
Or you don't offer a discount, but you offer an extra benefit. Here we go.
Yes.
We've got it. We offer an extra benefit if you sign up today, and the existing clients already get that extra benefit. No, that won't work. Then it's got to be.
Well, darling, we'll work it out. We don't need to do this on air. Okay?
No, of course we don't. No. What's our client challenge of the week this week then, Judith?
It's rebellion. Rebellion specifically about structure. I get my clients to do these weekly check-ins, and the core of it is what 2 things will you do this week over and above your normal workload that will move your business goals forward. And on Monday, there was an outright rebellion where, and actually, to be honest with you, this is after my own heart, because I'm a rebel, as you know, through and through. And the consensus this week, except for the people who like process, who are quite few in my world, was that I'm not going to do that this week, Judith. I'm sick of it. It's not working. I'm going to steer by something altogether more natural and instinctive. I'm going to focus on inspiration and self-care and doing more of what I love and reaching out to those I only feel good about and allowing things to come to me and leaving room for possibility and focusing in the moment. And there was a kind of, the zeitgeist, everybody feels the same thing at approximately the same time. There was this sort of rash of rebellion. Oh, sod it. I'm not going to send in my 2 things this week. It doesn't work. And when I do that, I rebel. So I'm just going to do what's working for me, which led, I think, to my writing a post about following your inner compass. I suppose I've brought it upon myself. My strapline is money making magic for enlightened entrepreneurs. So we're talking about magic and enlightenment. No surprise then that sooner or later they would catch on to the fact that while structure and hard work works for some, there's room in my world for a lot of magic and woo-woo and allowing and all that sort of thing. So I don't know whether it was the weather or what it was, but there was an outrash of rebellion. My clients are revolting.
So it's not one of your clients having a challenge of the week. It's you having challenges with your clients.
Oh, actually, no, I'm not challenged by this at all. I think it's quite interesting that, very interesting, that they all sort of felt it at the same time. And, I was coming at it from their perspective. I know that you're a believer even more than I am, much more than I am in, hard work and focus and systems and all of that. But it's not the only way that it works. There are other ways that it works as well. And I think that they were feeling rebellious, they are feeling rebellious, but what they're doing actually, and this goes back a little bit to Bear Grylls, is they're learning there's not only one way to light the fire. They're learning to trust themselves a bit. And whilst my structure is there in the early days and quite supportive and they don't know what they're doing, so they might as well submit to it, now that they're getting a little bit more confident of their own way of doing things, they're going, right, okay, I'm going to do it my way now. And so that is a client challenge, actually, moving from, slavishly following gurus at the expense of your own instincts. So I'm quite pleased that they're being rebellious because I think it's them, becoming more grown up about running their own business and making their own choices.
Yeah. Do you... I sort of feel a bit uneasy about this in that...
I knew you would. That's why I brought it, actually, yes. I knew it would be a talking point for us.
Yeah, it's because I suppose... it's the law of attraction thing, isn't it? I've always felt the most important part of the law of attraction was the actual word action, but there is I find myself meditating every morning. So,
I know.
I'm coming round.
They're not talking about not doing actions. They're talking about doing things that feel natural and instinctive to them rather than slavishly following, best practice. They're talking about inspiration and doing what they love. And I have to say the results that they're getting are really good.
Oh, well,
they're talking about reaching out to people they feel good about. That's an action.
Yeah.
Leaving room for possibility, allowing good things come to you. I can see that might seem passive rather than active. Focusing in the moment, never a bad thing. We talked last week about how your teenagers have a lovely, joyous life because they do that. I think it's a good sign, actually. Obviously I love rebels, but I think it's a good sign that they're maturing.
Yes, I agree. And as someone who realised a week or so ago that, I like having an empty diary, one could argue that I'm not doing anything because I have an empty diary. But actually what I'm doing is I'm choosing to do whatever I want to do in that time rather than...
Well, it's the same thing then, isn't it? Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yes,
so,
it is,
and they're getting results, are they?
I think they are getting results. Yeah.
And you would notice, wouldn't you, if it went on too long without any results?
Well, I would, yes. I would. And actually, I'm not surrounded by people. They didn't start like this. This is a step along the way. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's we're having a rush of spring to the head or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think once they stop slavishly following gurus and doing it their own way and saying, look, that doesn't work for me, what I notice is, so for instance, they will often report in their check-ins, these are the 2 things I'm going to do this week. They don't do those because they don't want to, because they felt sensible. They do something else and they get a result from that. It doesn't matter to me how they get a result, as long as they get a result. So, I think it's a good sign.
Well, we'll see, won't we? I agree with you. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's very funny that they're all rebelling.
It is funny that they're all rebelling. Yeah, so they were sort of apologetic. Oh, so sorry, Judith, I'm not going to report in this week. Somebody even sent a report in last week that said I'm not going to do anything this week. That's sort of na. But what it does is it leaves room for you doing precisely the things you want to do, and doing precisely the things you want to do is an action.
And perhaps it gives things time to catch up. We often say that it takes a while for everyone to realise what you're up to once you change tack a bit. So perhaps, there are sort of natural pauses in things, where it gives time to, a bit like the bulb. Here we go, we're all springy now. Gardening is beckoning. I've got to say, B&Q is calling. It's a bit like the bulbs under the ground. Oh no, hang on, there's a good story about bamboo, isn't there? If you were watching a bamboo farmer, you might think he was completely wasting his time for 4 years, because he tends the fields and he plants the bamboo and then nothing happens. Then 4 years later, a load of bamboo springs up and it grows very, very, very quickly. So perhaps it's about bulbs and germinating and things happening underground that you can't see, and things having time to catch up.
Yeah, I think cycles. Everything goes in a cycle, doesn't it? That's interesting. I didn't know it took 4 years before you saw anything with bamboo. I did know it grew like lightning when it eventually did. But yes, I think that's probably a good example. And the natural order of things is what's coming to my mind when you talk about farmers. And of course, we're quite far removed from that, aren't we? We sit in an office with a laptop and we do that kind of, I'm going to make things happen. And sometimes that isn't the best way. And I actually really rather like this rebellion, because it's my clients are saying, well, that might be the best way for some. It's not the best way for me. I feel I get better results when I do X, Y, and Z. Good on you. Do your X, Y, and Zs and let's see what happens. And sometimes there's some flip-flopping, which is I went too far in that direction, so now I'm coming back towards the middle. I'm always saying to them, I don't know, let's experiment and see what happens. And I think this is a good sign of a confidence born of preparedness to experiment and lay claim to your own power, I suppose. There we go.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting because I'm one of the things that I'm feeling, because I'm doing less and achieving more, and one of the things that I keep thinking I should blog more on the Business Success Factory, and then I remember that I have got a blog post in the form of a podcast episode going on that site every single week, which and then I do a business diary most weeks, and then I do a 7-day startup update occasionally when I feel like it, which I should do every week, but I don't really, there's no rule about that. So I just sort of think it takes a while sometimes for different habits to feel like you're doing stuff when you've traditionally, as you said, hard work and focus, over 1,000 blog posts on that site. If there's any justice in the world, Google will take that into account, and the fact that I'm still adding new stuff and it's multimedia will stand me in good stead, but it still feels like I'm not working hard enough on that site particularly.
Yes, and that's worth examining, isn't it? Because it's a belief, isn't it? It's a belief connected, because I'm not getting the results, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not sure that's the truth, because I think I work quite hard, and sometimes when I don't get results in a particular area, I think there must be, it's not that we're not working hard, it's that perhaps there's a better way to be putting that energy in.
Yeah, and for me, it's so effortless to do a podcast interview with a guest, and then to get it transcribed, and for Sarah to do all the techie work, and then to it to appear as if by magic on my blog every week, regardless of what I'm doing. And then I just need to get the transcription bit a bit sorted now, because the Filipino transcriptionists are a little bit flaky, bless them. So I just need to automate that, and then it'll all be happening automatically.
Let me ask you a question.
Go on.
Given that you are a woman who's written how many books? 3?
Yeah.
And a long newsletter for a number of years, and quite a lot of blog posts historically, do you feel the well is empty, or why are you not blogging now?
I think it's because I've been so focused on the technical side of this, this move of content. I think once that's up and automated and running, I think the well might spring again. But I do have a bit of a challenge with constant, thinking, I can't write about the same old stuff all over again. You seem to have a constant flow of new ideas on how to.
Well, I don't think they are new, Nicola, actually. And I tell you why, I think this is quite important, because actually there is a finite amount of stuff that we know, even though both of us love to learn new things. I don't think we want to be constantly finding new on a blog, because people don't read them sequentially, do they? Okay, both of us have got, avid fans who would read every word that we print, but that's not really why you blog. So I think to have, say, the top 10 or the top 20 things cycled and recycled and expressed in a new way is the best way of blogging. Now, did you see a blog post I wrote this week where 4 of my clients had a result from blogging? Did you see that?
I do read your blog post religiously, but I can't remember.
Well, let me tell you what happened last week. 4 of my clients who have been blogging very diligently for short, long, and medium terms had a result that came directly from the fact that they were blogging. One of them was asked by the BBC to be on something.
Oh yes.
One of them got an inquiry from Australia to could you teach me everything you know? I'd like to be your mentee. One of them was picked up by a massively prolific blogger and commented and feedbacked and shared. And the 4th one got an invitation to do a new piece of perfect, ideal client work. And that all 4 of those came from the fact that they blog.
Yeah.
And sometimes our clients, and indeed ourselves, blog very diligently for a long time and see no results at all. It was blog result week last week in my gang, and I thought that was quite fascinating. And all I could say was, you see, I told you. I told you there was value in blogging, not just over and above your traffic. You've all had business opportunities from it.
I like your concept of, because I'm not interested in blogging internet marketing tactics anymore. There's so many better people doing that than me. What I'm always more and more increasingly fascinated in is the psychological aspects of things.
Yes.
Because I've been through the journey myself. I know that's what really holds people back. It's not about the tactics at all. It's about, it's not about the fact that I could have just put a support ticket in. Why didn't I? That's what's interesting to me.
Yes.
So I like your idea of having 20 topics that are, because I've done countless surveys. In fact, I've got surveys running ongoing. Anyone who goes through my email marketing funnel will get surveyed at least twice. So I do have a great long list of the challenges people face, and I could probably go in there and find 10 or 20 topics that are common to all, and then just cycle through them with different insights.
Yeah, but that sounds a bit mechanical, you see, because what I think I'm doing is I'm going to write one today, which is about on receiving gifts from generous clients, because I've had a lot of presents recently.
Yes, you have.
Now, that's not a new topic. It's about gratitude, which is, and giving and receiving. I probably write about that quite a lot. I think that you don't necessarily need to turn it into a process. You just need to be comfortable with the idea that we're actually not really creating new every day.
Yes. And
we might be finding new ways to express the old through the glasses that we wear in 2015. As you're saying, it's the same material, but your interest in it's coming from a different angle now.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And you naturally talk about your clients, because I'm always conscious that perhaps I've been blogging in the past, but not with much of a marketing spin on it. I've just blogged from the heart and not necessarily had a call to action in the blog post. But I think that the right clients will read the blog post, resonate with them, perhaps read a case study and think, oh, that's just like me. And then they'll know where to click to get to go further, won't they?
Darling, I totally see you having made that work over the last decade. And if you don't pat yourself on the back for that, you're doing yourself a disservice. You've got many followers because you blog from the heart.
Well, that's a nice thought, isn't it? That's a very nice thought.
I can think of a handful of people I could name. I won't, but people who are undying loyal fans because you do your thing your way.
Yeah, and I'm one of yours because you do your thing your way, and that's why we're here.
Oh, there we go. There's the lesson of the week. Do your thing your way, and that's what the rebels were saying. I'm going to do my thing my way.
Yes, and there's no right or wrong in blogging. It's just doing it how you want to do it, and it will work. Something will happen.
You'll just create content, isn't it? Get it out there.
Yeah, you're creating ripples in a pond. That's what you're doing. This week's episode was sponsored by Audio Jungle. To get some immediate atmosphere for your website or your recordings, go to ownitthepodcast.com/Audio Jungle. What's your word of the week then?
Well, of course, typically I'm going to contradict myself now. Because the last thing was all about going with the flow and allowing and, you know, having it come to you and leaving room for possibility. My word of the week is prep, short for preparation. Because I've also had clients doing presentations, pitches and standing on stages, and you can't do that without being prepared. So, you know, somebody said, you know, I'm doing this speech on Saturday, what do you recommend? I say, oh, being prepared up to the eyeballs, because when you stand on stage and forget what you're going to say and lose it all and, you know, blah, 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 if you've done the preparation, it's all inside you somewhere and you can bring it out.
I totally agree, because when you can put me on any stage at all, and I'll know I will never run dry of things to say, or never be stumped by. In fact, you know that presentation I did before Christmas, Inspire, where I said everyone was laughing, and I apparently was very funny, but didn't realise it. I've actually just had the video back on that. And it's more about my facial expressions than anything else. But
your face makes people laugh. You have a funny face. Is that what you're saying?
Apparently I do. But yes, I that's why I have no fear of public speaking. Is because I know my stuff inside out. And
preparation.
Yeah.
Prep. So prep. I noticed it in one of my clients' emails that she was saying prep for this, prep for that. And, you know, when it came to this thing of, oh, God, I'm so nervous about my presentation. If you've prepared well, nerves are natural, but you don't need to worry because it's all in there. So that's my word of the week. What's yours?
Well, funny, it's very similar. It's ritual.
Oh.
We got a bit of zeitgeist going on, Judith. How nice. Yeah. That could be the word of the week. Rituals, yes. I've reorganised my mornings. I have I'm attempting to have some rituals, you know, around getting up and getting coffee and writing in my journal, which I've always done for the last few years. But now I'm listening to Paul McKenna. I'm doing at least his 12-minute one, then his 7-minute one. And I'm just really enjoying it. You know, the calm and the peace of moving from one thing to the next without having to think about it or be interrupted or having any background noise is just really, I'm finding it rather wonderful. So ritual, I think, is the thing. Humans like it, don't they? Sometimes they're bad rituals and sometimes they're good rituals, but as long as you're doing it for internal reasons rather than trying to pacify the Aztec gods, for example, which was never a good idea.
Yeah.
So they're very similar, aren't they? Ritual and preparation.
Yes.
Who or what's impressed this week?
Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love. Do you remember her?
I have read the book. I missed the spiritual bit, but I read the rest of it.
She did a TED talk. Have you ever seen that? Because there was a TED talk a few years back about people saying, you know, your first book was a bestseller. How are you ever going to follow that? And how it feels to be a creative person when people basically say, you know, your first one was a fluke. You're very lucky. You know, life's over now for you, type of thing. She's quite a funny person, but that's not what's impressed me this week. What's impressed me is that she has written all sorts of different books. So Eat, Pray, Love was a sort of memoir, and she's written other memoir type things and fiction as well. And she's got a book coming out this year on the 22nd of September 2015, which is 6 months away yet. It's called Big Magic, which is why I noticed it, of course, because my small program is called Small Business Big Magic. And the strapline is Creative Living Beyond Fear, which I think is very attractive. But what's impressed me is the fact that the marketing for that book on Facebook particularly, where she does it very well, do follow her on Facebook because it's riveting to see this unfolding. It began before Christmas.
Yeah.
So if there's a thing that I see my clients doing wrong, it's trying to launch something next week. What this woman demonstrates is that, you know, she's well into the writing of this book. She may even have finished it for all I know. It's not being launched until the 22nd of September, which is 6 months away. It is available to pre-order on Amazon with one click, but the marketing campaign is probably about a year long.
Wow, that is impressive, isn't it?
Well, I think if you're making a business out of being an author, you'd be bonkers if you didn't do that. I follow a lot of authors on Facebook because I fancy myself as a bit of a writer and I love to observe the marketing that they're doing. And I, you know, Stephanie Hale, the Oxford, publisher, she wrote a book where she interviewed lots of high-selling authors about how they do marketing, and they do a lot of it themselves these days. You know, Jeffrey Archer does his own tweeting, that sort of thing, which in the olden days authors used to leave to their publishing houses. They don't anymore. You have to, as an author, you have to take responsibility for that. And you might have a team, but you might do a lot of it yourself if your voice is important. So it's really interesting to see them not only just writing their book, but all having typically authors quite often, my favourite ones, publish a book every year, once a year, and even while they're doing that, they're cranking up the machine so that when they go live on the 22nd of September, we're all ready to buy it. We're hungry for the next one. And she's doing it, well, they all do it, the ones I follow, in a way which is very appealing. It makes you want the book. It doesn't feel like it's being rammed down your throat. It's generating interest, excitement, anticipation. So I saw it this week again. I saw the book before Christmas, which is why I know the campaign's been going on that long. I just think if you're creating something you love and you want your audience to love it, why wouldn't you enjoy telling them all about it, during the gestation period?
It's exactly following the product launch formula from Jeff Walker model, and it's interesting that it's becoming so widespread now. Because, well, not least because it works so well. Because it all starts with giving value, social proof, reciprocation. There's all those lovely. Do you remember when we used to plan some of our Money Gym launches? It was a 12-week process. And it actually goes right. It's interesting. It ties into our word of the week: preparation and planning. It actually is very, and it's what's the word, anathema to me to do that kind of detailed planning. My heart absolutely sinks. We know someone who's very good at that, and that's Sue O'Kell. She just plans launches brilliantly. I wonder if Elizabeth Gilbert's actually doing it herself, or if she's actually got a product.
I said, well, she's quite successful and she's got a lot of fans. I suspect it's a mixture, Nicola, because I think you can't completely outsource this. You can have a marketing team, but I think if you're a writer, if it wasn't in your voice, your readers would know.
They would, yeah, absolutely. So you're right. It's like Sam. I follow Sam Harris, who is an author as well, and he does quite a lot of blogging, and he tweets and he debates with various people, and so he's an extremely active author on social media. And when his books come out, they just they shoot straight to the top of the bestseller.
See, I can't imagine why anybody, if they were a writer, why they wouldn't enjoy that, because of course all those things you've just listed, blogging and tweeting, they're all the written word.
Yes, very much so.
So actually, if you're a writer, why wouldn't you enjoy that? And why wouldn't you enjoy communicating with people who like your stuff?
Yeah. So I've got, that second VIP client that came down to Shoreham recently. She's got a book already written. And she said, well, where do I start with the blogging? I said, well, you immediately start blogging the book. And don't worry about the fact that, you're going to be blogging in bits and pieces, and people could, if they wanted to, spend an entire day looking for the bits and pieces and reading your book. People will pay for the convenience of having it in paperback or Kindle format. But in the meantime, it will get your blog going. And then when you finish doing the book, it will give you other ideas, make notes of those, and then you'll have like a massive backlog of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Ideas to blog about, which is, it's a great way to get started if you're an author. And then, of course, you can read bits. I mean, authors used to travel the country, didn't they, reading their own books out loud?
Yes.
Well, the online equivalent of doing that means that you could create a video, you could create a podcast. I keep thinking about putting them, my Money Gym audio on as a limited edition podcast. Podcasts don't have to be ongoing. They could just be the audio of your book, or they could be audios of your podcasts.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to read them in the author's voice, unless, of course, Stephen Fry's doing the voiceover, in which case they'll happily listen to anything.
So who or what has impressed you this week?
Well, funnily enough, it's Sarah, my sister. I've just been so impressed with how she's handled this moving a website with over 1,000 blog posts, over 30 odd plugins, and going to a new hosting that's different to all the other hostings and the way it's set up. She's just taken it a step at a time. She's read the instructions. She's been incredibly patient, whereas I'd have been, bish, bosh, bash, not reading the instructions. And she's just puzzled it out bit by bit. And it took a sort of 24-hour period. But on Monday morning, my blog was on the new hosting, all working beautifully, and I didn't even have to go in and reconfigure all the plugins. I thought I would at least have had to do that. But no, so really impressed with the way she handled that huge task, and I'm very grateful that it was handled so beautifully. So,
Yeah,
Sarah?
she's very good at all of that. It's a crying shame we can't get her to offer herself to the wider world.
Well, I think she's working up to it. She's definitely getting there. She's working up to it. Tinywebservices.com. I'd just like to give her a little plug.
Big hug to Sarah as well, because she's done lots for me.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's very nice, isn't it? Well, there you go. Another great week. And our readership is growing in a very steady fashion. I'll show you the graph. I'll send you another thing of the graph. But do please, everybody. We haven't had any new reviews this week. So I would very much love to help, to send you all to ownitthepodcast.com, where you'll be able to find this episode, and there'll be links and a little video showing you how to give us a lovely review wherever you are in the world, because we've got listeners all over the world now, Judy.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I know. Same time, same place next week. You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. All right. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.